Technical Session 1, Dr. J. Sesha Srinivas Garu, Senior Scientist, Environment Protection Training and Research Institute. I thank you, sir, for being there for the session. I now hand over the session to them for the technical session to go on. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, madam, for the good introduction about us. Co-chair Dr. Srinivas, Supriya Guha, distinguished scientists, participants, presenters. Well, on behalf of the Institute of Public Enterprises, I welcome you all to this first technical session on climate change mitigation adaptation. For many of us, climate change is not distant one. It is happening in reality. We all have been experiencing. It was some time back we have heard in the morning that people were not believing climate change is happening. But as scientific community involved directly or indirectly in varying degrees, we all accept the change is happening. And it's no more an environmental issue, it's a developmental issue. Many people in the morning have also dealt with this. The growth models, development models have taken a different turn and it has affected socially, economically, and of course ecologically. The challenge is to answer these things in a sustainable way. For this, the seminar is organized and first session is going to begin. With this brief remarks, I would like to welcome you once again to this session. We have 9 presenters and 2 lead presentations. Well, it is not just by the privilege of being chair that I would take the first lead lecture, but I see some synergy of continuity of Dr. Sultan has said in the morning that he said that there is a need to focus on the governance of the climatic change. So with that assumption, I will take the first presentation myself. Friends, as I said, I would restrict to 10 minutes, I would cut short. You have been hearing this morning that climate change is happening, and particularly I will focus my topic on agriculture without going to other areas. But agriculture, as you all know, it emits greenhouse gases, contributes to climate change, and it also suffers itself. And there are several impacts, directly and indirectly, on agriculture. Basically, the agriculture and food system totally is expected to, contributing presently anyway to the range of 19 to 21% to the global greenhouse gases. But agriculture per se, only crop production is hardly about 15 to 20%. Of course, there are different studies that have pointed out the varying degrees of contribution, but nonetheless, not more than 15 to 16%. The impacts of these things are positive and negative. As said in the morning, that the impacts are going to be kind of positive probably to the certain northern hemisphere countries, because even 1-2 degrees centigrade temperature rise would benefit the crops due to increased photosynthesis and water availability. In some countries, particularly northern countries and China as well, to a great extent. But certainly it is going to have a negative impact on countries like India, West Asia, and many developing countries. Basically, in the morning they said that the poor countries, which constitute almost about 50 to 60% of the global population, they suffer most because they are not geared up, they do not have resources, which were clearly told in the morning. Again, as I said, the continuation of the Dr. Sultan Rahman's continuation, it needs governance. We all know that things are happening, but the action to combat the climate change in different sectors needs a well-defined framework. So far, we have been operating the policies. The policies available for climate change and adaptation mitigation are plenty actually. The adaptation, as you know, it refers to the ability of a system to adjust to climate change in order to reduce the vulnerability and enhance the resilience to observe anticipated and other impacts of the climate change. Well, IPCC has defined in the same way. If you come to mitigation, it refers to any strategy or action taken to remove greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere or reduce its content. Basically, of course, there is a lot of similarity between adaptation and mitigation, but speaking about mitigation, it's a long-term nature. Mitigation is by a law or by a process imposed with huge resources by countries at global and national level, generally speaking. Adaptation, when it comes to that, basically, it is at local level, or regional level, or at the most national level. So, adaptation part I would like to deal with only the agricultural adaptation and governance for agricultural adaptation practices. The policy options actually it requires lot of governmental action. Whenever we talk about the governance in climate change, particularly mitigation, more, and to greater extent in adaptation, a series of coherent and integrated policies are required for agriculture while implementing adaptation and mitigation practices for climate change. Policies that are part of governance can be various types. There are short-term policies, there are medium-term policies, there are long-term policies. Basically, adaptation goes with the short-term policies, particularly dealing with agriculture. I would focus on a few points actually. The objective of the short-term policies is just for 1 year or 2 years, particularly from the agriculture point of view, to increase the production. Well, basically these short-term policies should be included in the food security plans of the states and national governments, and they should have specific targets of the climate impacts. And most important for adaptation in agriculture is building capacities of the communities, what we talk in general, here in terms of farmers, when we speak about agriculture, particularly small and marginal farmers who constitute almost 80 to 85% of the farming community. Well, actually, long-term plans require the monitoring actually by governments, by international agencies, UN bodies, etc. Basically, to coordinate the national plans, the international or global plans, particularly to make use of the resources, limited resources available, and not only to get into trap, so that if you want to change the path of a country, you cannot be restricted. Tomorrow you can change. So this kind of coordination required between the agencies involved in the climate change adaptation agriculture. And of course, monitoring actually build the networks, the data platforms, the computers, the ICTs, they have to be made available to particular policymakers to give a policy direction for the adaptation strategies. Well, when it comes to governance actually, there are various definitions of governance. The governance is a term which has been coined or brought into use in the administration in the very recent decades, actually, probably a decade or 2 decades back. It's a dazzling word, at the same time, it's a very ambiguous term actually. A lot of people think that governance is by state itself. The governance is not by state only. The governance is the arrangement of the instruments which will help the policymakers or the heads of the institutions to achieve the objectives. Here in terms of agriculture and government, when we talk about that, the government has certain responsibilities to deliver the services. So whatever the instruments which are used to deliver those services is governance. The government, as you know, it goes by order. The governance goes by participation of all the stakeholders, not only state here, which is the determinant and implementer of the policies, but the civil societies, people, organizations, everybody is involved in this governance actually. When you talk about the instrument, what is formal instruments and informal instruments, formal instruments basically goes for the mitigation of climate change. Here we talk about climate change. It's a general term and I'm trying to apply it to governance. The international laws, or the boundaries, or the rules and regulations, or the jurisdiction, or the INDCs, and the percentage of reducing of the ppm level of CO2, all these things go to formal agreement or the formal arrangement actually. Whereas the informal, basically the adapt with the local people at the local level. What it comes, how we have been reacting to adapt for centuries, which you heard in the morning, those things come to informal practices or informal strategies. Economic ones, every action taken by a farmer or stakeholder has an economic value. So these are in terms of prices, subsidies, etc. They are called economic instruments. This forms the basically governance structure actually. Basically, the governance actually, a lot of things are happening actually. There are horizontal within the state or central government departments across the policies, different ministries, all these things. They also formulate policies. The water resources department forms a policy. Agriculture department heard in the morning that there are several ministries that do coordination, all these things. So the improving the horizontal policies, decision making is one thing across the sectors, across the policies, and uncertainty of climate reactions and impacts at various levels. They have to be addressed by building a knowledge base. These are all the
challenges for the governance, adaptation, and climate change. And of course, most important that we have been several people who are that the marginalized people, they are not taken into consideration, and they have to be made part of the governance framework, whatever government wants to make, because so that they know the ground realities and they can help formulate better strategies for easy adaptation and fast adaptation. So one of the key issues, as told in the morning, that failure of the governance in the climate change. Mitigation, way back after the experience of the Second World War and the Industrial Revolution, they found a lot of years and decades of work has combined and that they have crossed the limits. So they frame certain rules and regulations and contexts. Coming to adaptation, it is still not yet known. But people have been practicing adaptation of agriculture for centuries and millennia actually. Basically, any framework for the governance and adaptation should take into, from agriculture point of view, or talk. Basically, governance, as I said, adaptation governance does not require policies at broad level. They are at local level only. And adaptation is basically reactive and unexpected. Reactive, when it happens, we address. But people have been practicing for centuries unexpected adaptation as well. And the adaptation strategies and governance should be priority to the people, their assets first, and then build upon the local strategies. Most importantly, the water, food, energy nexus. This has been forgotten. Most of these initiatives in adaptation have been dealt with sectoral water issues, or agriculture issues, or rural development, or livelihoods. If you combine and take an excess approach, that would give better results for the governance. Most important from governance point of view, we have to make the technology which has emerged, ICT tools have to be used for governance purposes. We have to incorporate risk avoidance, particularly risk avoidance. Basically, from agriculture point of view, we talk about the developing the varieties which are resistant for drought. For example, Telangana, most part of India, drought-prone area. So we have to risk and avoid by developing long-term varieties which are heat-resistant. The capacity of the people have to be built up. Risk sharing. Risk sharing is basically in agriculture is a crop insurance we have to practice. Risk acceptance. Whenever metallurgical data today is advanced, when it is projecting that we have really avoided going for a particular crop or long duration crop, etc. from agriculture point of view, and exploitation of opportunities. Rather than going for one crop, you can go for a short duration crop. When the rains are delayed, you can go for a short duration crop. These are the things which have to combine into governance services. Of course, there are some issues and needs. Information is to be provided to the all stakeholders and to government to also use. The capacities of the people have to be built up. The financial resources should be made available to countries at the nation level and smaller and smaller at the local level. And the institutions have to be developed. That's what we heard in the morning, that the institutions which are very loose have to be built up with certain framework and other things. The technology is emerging has to be made use for adaptation practice. But technology can have it's a two-way sword actually, where we make use which is needed at local level only. Well, ICTs have used for climate change. ICTs can help in monitoring and mitigation and adaptive practices. Basically, they will help the ICTs to act as a model for the monitoring and adaptation measures which are taken by the government, which will ultimately give the desired results and developmental results. Basically, I would confine myself to the agricultural adaptation strategies from a governance point of view. Whenever we make a framework at the state level, which we have been practicing at Telangana recently, we are trying to formulate a governance framework for adaptation that involves changing planting dates. Whenever, depending on the metallurgical data, the rains are delayed, drought is going to continue, or there is going to be heavy rains, we change the planting dates and planting different varieties and even crops. For example, certain crops are not suitable for certain areas. In Telangana, for example, Hyderabad, a new crop which was not prevalent in Hyderabad, soybean is introduced. Development and promotion of alternative crops. Developing new drought and heat tolerant varieties is one of the adaptation strategies from agriculture point of view. More use of intercropping, mulching, all these practices have taken care. Sustainable use of fertilizers. We have been using randomly because the heavy use of fertilizers consume heavy dose of fertilizers. And there is not much use beyond the limit, so we have to go further. improved crop facility and weed management, and water technologies, irrigation practices. India is one of the lowest irrigation efficiency of 25 to 30% when you compare to other countries. So that's most important for the adaptation strategy. And best pesticide and disease control for crops, managing river basins and of course irrigation systems, diversifying incomes. Climate change also the impacts are very huge in the small and marginal farmers. So the governance framework should include diversifying the farm incomes to non-farm incomes that can be created. There are certain policies are there. One of the most important one is Manrega, and increasing use of climate forecasting to reduce production risk. Today technology is advanced in terms of meteorological predictions. We have to make available not only to policymakers but at village level. Pilot project is going on in Telangana and Andhra as well to bring farmers, install the weather forecast stations at village level and give them day-to-day forecast in Telugu. So that would help them to plant their crops or harvest their crops. So these are the few adaptation measures agriculture. We should form part of the governance framework because we all know all these things. But unless these things are put into a framework and practiced, that is not called governance. And any action taken in climate change mitigation or in this other context adaptation will use this. So frameworks will be developed by government and agencies depending on the local requirements and local challenges. This is what governance about adaptation mitigation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. Prasad, for completing within time, and you have explained nicely about the short-term and long-term practices to be in the climate change adaptation in the agriculture sector. In short term, in both terms, he has explained about the food security is a main issue, and in the long term about the climate resilient crops to be developed to answer the food security and other things. Any questions, please?
You also said something about soybean in Hyderabad.
Yeah, the shifting of crops only because soybean in Hyderabad basically it's a black cotton size. And they are going cotton. Cotton is declared there is issues, social and economic issues are there. So 4-5 years back the Aswad agriculture has shifted the complete crop. And actually what's happening is high rainfall area. Soils are good, but the cotton is getting devastated with more than 1000 millimeter rain in Hyderabad. One of the highest in Andhra Pradesh for that matter. So this completely shifted soybean which requires kind of withstands for the water evaporation.
In I heard apple is being tried.
Apple, yeah, now very small way. But even there are some issues. Apple trying because it would again consume energy and because in Pakistan, the Balochistan they are growing apples. So apples are going up and they are going down actually. So there are several challenges with each adaptation method they take. Yeah.
Telangana Science and Technology.
Yeah, right.
I just wanted to find out if there is any sort of a consultation services or education services that you provide to farmers regarding the water harvesting techniques, number one, because of very untimely rains, number one, and very there is a shortfall of the.
I got your point.
Yes, and secondly, due to destruction of the forest areas and some of the farms being close to the forest areas, what's happening is the wild boars damaging the crops.
Yeah.
Like sharing from my own personal experience, a maize crop was recently totally damaged by the wild boars in our farm area. And like our family being environmentally very, very sensitive, we don't want to damage the wild boars because we definitely take responsibility as human beings. We have been impacting their habitats. And even the langurs, now the mango crop is being damaged by the langurs.
Well, I think to your first question, actually, water harvesting techniques, a lot of work is being done in many parts of the country, particularly here at Hyderabad and Telangana. Of course, they are doing national level. CREDA has developed a lot of techniques and technologies for water harvesting at farm level, at house level also. They are available also. They are low cost technologies they have developed for water harvesting. The second point, of course, relates to the governance issue of the animal. This thing, of course, this problem is faced by many farmers, wild boars and all these things. I don't know how they can tackle this, but per se, of course, you can hunt and kill. There is only penalty. Unlike other animals being killed,
For the wild boars, all these things, a small penalty is there if you are caught only. But arresting and killing them in villages is not an uncommon practice. But you being head of it's a challenge anyway, but government have not.
Sir, actually, when we contacted the forest department, there is a forest affecting this particular area in Shimshabad, and the forest department has come up with an idea of
Fencing.
trench around
Yes.
the forest area, 10 feet trench, but there is so much of political resistance for that.
They are the local issue
Very,
that
very ulterior motives.
Yeah.
So that is a major challenge that the forest.
we all do the villages, so we put trenches, we put electric fences. I mean, something cannot be mentioned on paper, but we do all kind of things, the local issues. Yes, sir.
For that wild boar elimination, only trap is the only solution. Otherwise, except DFO level should kill the
Yes,
wild
that is there, that is
boar.
there.
That is the act is there. And for this trench is one solution. The second solution is the maize crop. Around the maize crop, entire border, if you go for safflower,
Sunflower, yeah.
wild boar will not come. The same practice near Nagamala, we are practicing in 40 villages. To adapt this situation, it took nearly 4 or 5 years for us. That is the only solution.
A good solution. Safflower, please.
Quick question.
Please.
In one of your slides, you have put that adaptation policies do not require collective action.
They require collective.
No, but it is actually, I was surprised. In one of your slides.
No, our adaptation practices and the collective in the sense at a national level, intergovernmental level, or because they require lot of negotiation in that context I said. Because mitigation collective means mitigation efforts, one country cannot do that. In that sense, many countries have to practice mitigation measures, all these things. Here adaptation at local level, at its farm level also, we can practice. In that sense I said that. Collective means people's participation for formulating and implementing. But for adaptation, for example, changing a crop variety in agriculture, particularly for agriculture, it's my decision, my farmer will do that. In that context, I said. Whereas it doesn't require a big collective decision by nations and international bodies to formulate all these things. Yeah, they do not require.
Bhutan, you are seeing 70% partially. Still, there are some with glaciers.
It's not within the our context in our country or maybe at regional level, all those kind of adaptation policies, they do require collective action.
No. They collective means part from governance point of view to implement at large scale at regional state level they require. But my context of mentioning was that was in order to change from agriculture point of view, changing a crop varieties or going for the water harvesting ponds or doing for some other adaptation measures, they do not require collective action. It's an individual decision. The farmer has to practice at farm level. That's what I said. Yeah. Local action. That's what. Local action. So I think without really delaying much, I will go for the next presentation by Dr. Supriya Guha. Yes, I think yours is the one.
And this setting of unique CSP plan, all these plans are with Finland government going on. All these projects are going widely. And finally, sustainability reporting. This is now very much fundamental. I can show you 50 organizations in Delhi busy in sustainability. Because until unless you are ethical, you are disclosing, you can have sustainability under GRI framework, GRI 4.0 framework. We have 7 years we are publishing sustainability reporting for the stakeholder benefit, stakeholder disclosure. So finally, this is our green building. We have made 4 green buildings. Hyderabad green building is also in offing. When this is making one green building Hyderabad. Recently we made in Delhi. It is a 600 crores budget for that. It has already we moved to the green building. And corporate, you know, CSR. When this is CSR spend is maximum. We have each and year 459 crores we spend to the CSR. And since CSR is a non-lapsable fund, we at this moment we have in our KT 1539 crores of CSR fund. That is a mandatory 2% of net profit. ONGC profit is the highest, so CSR. So this is our finally ONGC. Let me tell you, if you see the annual report, ONGC, there are a lot of accolades, 4-page accolades awards. Most prolific green award is the green ranking. Green ranking gives on the basis of the 3 parameters. Business ranking, 3 parameters: environmental footprint, management, environmental policy programs and initiative, and disclosure, transparency. Ethical corporation always based on the disclosure, how much transparent you are, how much transparent in order to making the profit. So profit you should get. So this is our ranking in 2014. I think no other organization in India has the green ranking so far. So we have the green Newsweek green ranking. So this is our in nutshell what we are doing. At the nutshell last we are under 7 programs and 28 projects. And finally, being a student of Ramakrishna Order, every presentation I used to quote Swami Vivekananda's quote. He is the cyclonic monk of India. 39 years he lived. So take up one idea, decide for me, for you people. Make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it. Live on that idea. Let the brain, muscle, nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea, and just leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success. That is the way great spiritual giants are produced, and arise ever can stop not till the goal is reached. Swami Vivekananda. So with this, let me finish. Thanks a lot for listening.
Thank you, sir. I think we all agree to cut short our time. I think it seems helpful to the speakers would reduce to 9 minutes.
Please could you tell us one thing very quickly, because this had been a question in my mind for years together, and this is the right time. And if you could answer this question, I think that would be a big contribution.
I would like to
This is ONGCs in terms of sustainability. What we actually need to look for the future generation should not compromise in terms of their reserves of fossil fuels.
I told.
Let me complete first. So, because of fossil fuel is in the list of non-renewable resources, or even if they are renewed after a million years later. How actually ONGC looks this crisis, that how you are going to compensate the demand of future generation in terms of exploration that you are doing now?
True. So, you have to start in a new way. No? At least small steps.
See, you take this question very
We all just have our own organization, but the question is very different.
Yes.
We are
Just tell us honestly how ONGC looks.
Would you
this.
like me to
Please,
respond?
please.
I have shown you ONGC's vision strategy. We never retained that we would be becoming an oil and gas corporation. Because it is true that oil and gas not forever, maximum 20 years. So we have already diverted to that renewable energy. We have already 51 megawatt wind energy. That would be, nowadays knowledge has crisscrossed so much discipline has been. So there is no question of geology to involve only oil and gas sector. They should be implemented in that this employed in this your renewable energy also. This every form they can be. They can be oriented like that. We have no very good academics there. So we train as per our manpower requirements. So we train them for different.
Anyway, it's very difficult.
What did you
The
explain?
countries, sir, the countries are not able to answer their identify with false means. So it's very difficult to answer.
The name of your organization is changing.
But one thing I
You are diversifying and escaping the responsibility, but whatever you damage already, how can you do that? You cannot do that. Nobody can do that.
Yes, so this
You
would have
cannot-
been, I thought of that if you have some long-term projects or some.
No matter how long it is, they cannot compensate for the losses they have
you
incurred.
cannot remind your past, no?
Because of
What
this is the point where sustainability idea in terms of ONGC is not ONGC. I am talking about all international companies. It is totally forfeited.
Yeah. No, but you have to take the definition.
I think maybe lunchtime we can discuss. I think a very interesting question is put. I think without further delay, may I request Dr. Shesha, I think we'll wrap today.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Sir, perhaps one very sort of optimistic way of looking at it is probably ONGC should convert itself into oil and natural fuel corporation or company.
True.
You know, instead of gas.
Yeah.
So
We
perhaps
are-
looking at it in that perspective, may at least it may not sort of undo the damage that is done, but at least it will curtail the damage that is likely to happen in future.
We are already in unconventional and gas exploration, coal bed methane, shale gas. We have very much budget allocation for the coal bed methane, shale gas. So we understand what will future lies for us. ONGC cannot afford because we have the resources, we have the attitude, we have the knowledge.
A topic like yours would really generate a lot of discussion. Anyway, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And may I request Dr. Shesha Srinivas to present the next for the university.
I'd like to talk within 10 minutes. So you know EPDR is all agency on climate change and has prepared the state action plan on climate change for the combined Andhra Pradesh, then to Telangana. And the state action plan climate change covers about 10 sectors like agriculture, biodiversity, transportation, urban development, rural development, and so on. There are 10 sectors, including climate change research. So that document is available in the MOFCC website for anybody can see. Minister of Environment Forest, they have accepted it. And we'll briefly about EPTRA. Next, these are the key messages that we got from AN5. Everybody knows it. The global temperature has gone up by 0.85 during the last 100 years. And GHG carbon dioxide was the highest at the present. And 19 centimeter sea level from 1901 to 2010 in the IPCC AN5 report says. And greenhouse gas need to be cut by 40 to 70% by 2050. And by the year 2010, we have to completely phase out the fossil fuels. And GHG emissions should be reduced to 2100 so that the temperature, global temperature can be below 2 degrees. And of course, the UNFCCC and NFCCC, I think you are aware of this. National Action Plan on Climate Change, and the state, all the states were asked to prepare the State Action Plan on Climate Change. These are about the SABCC in Telangana. We have around 10 sectors. NABCC has around 8 missions, and SABCC has around 10 sections like agriculture, forest diversity, energy, industries, transportation, health, urban development, tourism, rural development, and research and development. These are the 10 sectors which are likely to be affected by climate change. And these are the main, some of the interventions that we observed in agriculture, which I think that Prasad has covered in the morning, some time back. And see what is our role as a knowledge and climate change. We conduct workshops with all the line departments of the Telangana government. We call them, and based on the SABC State Action Plan on Climate Change, we discuss the various projects towards climate change adaptation and mitigation. So out of these workshops, the projects will evolve. In agriculture, we have developed a project like climate resilient practices in the most vulnerable district. It's called Resilient Agriculture Households through Adaptation to Climate Change in Telangana. If you see the erstwhile 10 districts, Mahbubnagar is happening to be the most vulnerable district in Telangana. And the temperature is likely to go up 4 to 5 degrees by 2018. The rainfall is going to remain the same, around 500 to 600 mm. And so these are list of the projects that we discussed in the various workshops, and awarded. The first one is with regard to agriculture. And agriculture, we got under National Adaptation Fund on Climate Change, NFCC from Ministry of Environment Forest, around 25 crores project last year. Yesterday it was inception workshop took place in Mahbubnagar. Earlier, it used to be a single district earlier. Now it is divided into 3 districts. We need to call it 3 district collectors. Yesterday my DG and we were there in the inception. So now it is launched in Mahbubnagar. It will help around 2,500 farmers towards their adaptation. The lower small farmers in terms of whether farm funds or in terms of alternative livelihood, poultry, animals, some sort of alternative livelihood being provided for farmers. This is about the finance structure available in various forms like Green Climate Fund, National Adaptation Climate Change, National Clean Energy, and Climate Change Adaptation Program. This project one, I was telling you, this is a consortium between among 4 institutions like Government of Telangana, EPTRA, the Professor Jayashankar University, and ICISAT. We are the executive entity, and the Government of the Telangana through Department of Agriculture will be implementing the interventions in the field. How we have arrived at Mahbubnagar, this is adaptive capacity index for the Mahbubnagar district. Mahbubnagar is the least adaptive in terms of economic status, demographic status, infrastructure status, education status, and health status. This is how we arrived why Mahbubnagar is the most vulnerable district. And in terms of drought, Mahbubnagar is on the top. Always 3rd year they have a successive drought. When we went to Parvatipuram, one of the districts in Krishnapalli Mandal, they have drought for the 3rd successive year, and they want only water structures or check dams. And the second menace is the wild boar menace. These two they are half of the crop goes to wild boars. And this is climate variability change and impacts of Mahbubnagar. If you see the rainfall trend from 1995 to 1969, and other one is 1990 to 2014, there is a shift in monsoon. The October rainfall has started increasing from 1990 onwards. the onset of monsoon change. So naturally they have changed the crop pattern, affecting the yields and other areas. There is a change in crop in the area again in Mehboob Nagar. The rice is increasing, and cotton and other crops are increasing, and the traditional crops like castor, groundnut, sorghum, millets, other things they are decreasing. If you ask the current generation, their grandfathers used to sow castor oil or maize, groundnut and other things. Now they have shifted to cotton and rice, which are highly water intensive crops. So these project objectives which is being done in this is promoting science-based adaptation strategies, developing season climate forecast, and enhancing the capacity of the farmers, and of course the alternate livelihoods. These are about this project, and these are the interventions, adaptation interventions that has been planned in terms of promotion of oilseed, millets, water crops, and farm ponds, borewell recharge structures, backyard poultry, ruminants, fodder crops, and vermicomposting. See, in the absence of the regular rainfall there, most of them are dependent on dairy. So the fodder is again there is a shortage of fodder. Restoration of tanks. This is about agriculture. What the Telangana government is doing in terms of adaptation. There are many other things, but what VPTN has been doing, the funds were available only during last year. The first year of the availability of the funding from Government of India, we could access the fund. Many of the states had to follow to get the funds. So already we are into second year of the operation. Restoration of tanks. You are aware that Mission Kartiya is being implemented in Telangana, restoring the around 46,500 lakes, and so far they have done around 10,000 lakes. And already the impact is being seen in terms of water availability and the water quality being improved in some of the areas. The objectives are seen here: restoration of feeder channels to the tanks, silt application in the farmer fields, comprehensive repair of our tanks, tree plantation and banks, and desilting of tanks. Whatever the silt comes, the farmer takes the silt and using it as a fertilizer and reducing the use of fertilizers in the field. In fact, the report says that the yields are increasing without using any organic fertilizer. The outcomes like 255 TMs of water will be drawn from Krishna and Godavari. The minimum adequate to be irrigated will be 25 lakh acres. Presently, 7 to 8 lakh hectares acres are being irrigated, and once all these tanks are restored, it will increase the adequate to 17 to 18 lakhs using these tanks. There is a lake there that did not come there. Yeah, there is a lake here. This is one of the restored lakes. Forestry and Biodiversity, you might have heard about Haritaharan. The government has planned around 230 crore plants in 4 years, and so far around 50 lakhs plants have been planted. The first year there was a bad monsoon. I think last year there due to good monsoon, the plantation has gone up to around 50 lakhs. And once the 230 crore plants are planted, and if they have a carbon sink, the present carbon sink in Telangana is around 10 million tons of carbon. If all the 230 survive and they create a carbon sink, likely to have around another 10 million tons. As our DG showed in the morning, we need to quantify adaptation mitigation. Mitigation means how much carbon is being done. We need to answer the UNFCCC in terms of carbon mitigation. Government of India has committed that 2.3 billion tons of planting will be done in the forestry. So it will create so much of carbon sink. So from Telangana, now 0.23 billion tons of trees are being planted, isn't it? Government of India has committed 2.3 billion tons throughout India. We are doing around 0.23. So rest of the India also, they have to come up with a plan so that we need to answer UNFCCC in terms of the INDCs that we committed. We have committed that 25 to 30% of emissions will be reduced by the year 2030. So we need to quantify every activity in terms of adaptation or mitigation. energy, solar energy, we are second in the India now, first Rajasthan. Our solar energy potential has gone up beyond 1000 megawatts in Telangana right now. So this will create additional carbon mitigation. Transportation. This is simply transportation. We are not much into CNG and other things, but the estimates say that we have around 30,000 vehicles of CNG driven other than buses. Buses are very few, RTC buses are very few.